SPC Nickel is a mineral exploration company focused on its Muskox high-grade polymetallic copper nickel PGM project in Nunavut and its Lockerby project within the world-class Sudbury mining camp. CEO Grant Mourre is here to talk about 2025 and a lot of things that happened there and the plans for 2026. My name is Martin Gagel. I'm with Market Radius Research, and please remember this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Grant, thanks for joining us. It's been a minute, so as they say, since we have chatted, and you've done a whole lot. Welcome, and what's been going on?
Well, it's good to see you again, Martin, and it has been a busy, since we last talked in June or July, it's been a busy 6 or 7 months for SPC. Just on a high level, we completed a $3.5 million rights offering financing at the end of June that allowed us to, actually, the end of July, which allowed us to get into the field up in Muskox. So we, throughout the part of July, August, and September, we completed two large airborne surveys, a airborne EM survey and an airborne MT survey. And these are, the first airborne surveys in probably 20 plus years on that project. So it was great to get some, collect some new data that we can use for modeling. And we also ended up going up to the Muskox for a couple weeks to collect samples and kind of view some of the existing showings. And, a lot of that information has been released, but, we've got more good news to come.
All right, so not all the data from the Muskox has been released yet.
No, we've put out the assay results and
okay.
The results from the EM survey. And, frankly, it was really nice to see that the market responded quite well to our story. I mean, since our financing, we've seen a 5 times increase in our share price. And I think that's a direct result of investors understanding what the opportunity is at Muskox and what the potential is, and having a really good shareholder in Dundee who participated in the rights offering and is now a 36% owner of the company, really gives us a lot of credibility and gives the project a lot of credibility because they're, a world-class investment group.
Your grab sample. There are grab samples, and say obviously it's not a straight intercept, but 18% copper with a 71% copper equivalency when you add in the nickel and PGM on it. That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, they've phenomenally. You're right. They're grab samples. They're not drill intersections, so they are selective in nature, but.
Still pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time working on these kind of polymetallic systems, and one of the key points that always comes back to me is you have to feel like the system is capable of producing the grades that you need to see. If a property you only get a 0.5% everywhere, chances are you're going to get more of a 0.5%. But when you start to get grades where on a copper equivalent basis, you're getting 30, 40, 50 up to 70% and multiple ounces of precious metals. That if you find the right spot, you can get the grade that you need to put together something that's pretty significant.
Yeah, there's clearly something going on there, which is great. You want to give a little more detail on maybe just the concept of what you saw, and then obviously this leads to a drill program in the coming year, and just maybe I presume you don't have a detailed plan to discuss right now, but sort of a broader conceptual plan.
We've been active on the project for a few years, and mainly with boots on the ground sort of work. Mapping and prospecting. So this was our first season where we actually took that next step and did some large regional surveys that are important for us in taking the next step in this project. And we kind of have a 4-year plan, of which 2026 is year 2, and we're going about this a little it's a technically based program, but we're also going about it fairly slow and methodical because we want to make sure that when we do get a drill up on that site, that we have done all of our homework ahead of time so that we're testing the best targets possible. And so prior to this, we were working mainly with historical data that we had. So now we've collected new data, and we started with the airborne MT survey, which is really designed to try to help image the bottom of this large intrusion and looking for conductive regions at depth that would allow us to kind of hone in on areas to do further surveys on to evaluate. And that survey went well. We haven't put the results out with that. I expect that to be out probably this week or next week. The EM survey was a big success. We flew the entire property from one end to the other, about 1,400 line kilometers. And this is, like I said, the first modern EM system in over 20 years. So a lot's changed in that time. And as we expected, we got a lot of EM anomalies. I think initially we had over 800, but after a little bit of filtering, we're down to about 500 or so anomalies. So, and on first pass level, there's some really high quality targets that have never been tested within the top couple 100 meters of surface that we're really excited about. And now the challenge is we actually have to go through and kind of pick the best looking ones and start the modeling process and see how that relates to existing showings, maybe historic drilling, how it fits in with the geology, but certainly no lack of EM targets, which is great. And and then finally we did a field program, just boots on the ground, to follow up on some of the better showings that are on the property, and we put the assays out for those, and they demonstrate the high grade potential that this intrusion has. And you have to keep in mind the scale. I mean, it's about 120 kilometers long, and there's high grade mineralization from one end to the other. So it's a huge system, and we have to do our work to start prioritizing targets.
Are you going to be able to? Are you planning on drilling this spring, summer? And do you want to do some more field work before you sort of choose your final drill targets, or do you have enough data at this point to actually choose some initial targets?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly enough EM anomalies that you could spend a whole year drilling them. But we want to make sure that we are drilling the right things in the right spot.
Okay.
There is always a certain limitation with airborne surveys. I mean, the depth penetration for airborne surveys is good, but it's not as good as ground. So, my ideal plan would be to be doing additional ground geophysics in 2026, where we kind of use the data we've collected that has got us into certain regions that we're excited about, to do the ground geophysics to really then prove up the targets. And if the financing is there and the markets are still there and time permits, the potential to drill this year is there. We may be looking more at 2027 for that. I just want to make sure that when we do go up there, we have a couple dozen of the best targets that we could generate from the data that we've collected.
To me, that makes total sense, especially with such a large property. If you don't sort of do the work ahead of time and then you get a couple of dusters, then that kind of sets you back. So at least to get started, maybe raise the confidence level as much as possible.
Yeah, and we're not the first group to work on this property, and when you historically look back at the companies that have operated, a lot of times they were rushing things to get the next drill intersection, to do a financing or to get the share price.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like you said, if it doesn't work out once, it's really tough to get that momentum back again. So we want to make sure we're doing the right things. Our major shareholder, Dundee, wants us to make sure that we've done all of our homework ahead of time before we get a drill up there.
Well, good. It's nice that you've got a major shareholder and that they're backing the plan and they're not trying to rush you or doing anything like that. Okay. That's good. Okay, so have we covered off the Muskox? Is it time to look at Lockerby or anything else
Sure.
on Muskox?
Yeah, I mean, other than we will be having, there's more data still to come out from this year. We'll have, we hope to have a pretty active and full summer and fall program at Muskox, which will really be kind of our flagship project moving forward.
All right, now to the Sudbury area.
Yeah, so I mean, our Sudbury project is called Lockerby East. It's right beside the past producing Lockerby mine that was a Falconbridge mine throughout the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. We have been active on what's called the West Graham. So there's two deposits on the property. There's one called the West Graham, which is a large, shallow, open pitable resource, and then there was is a higher grade resource at depth that was actually mined in the 80s and 90s, and that's a higher grade deposit. We've focused on the shallower, larger open pit, and that was a lot of the driver for from when the company went public till up until a year or so ago. And it's primarily a nickel copper with more nickel. And we have shifted focuses a little bit away from it in the fact that as of 6 months ago, nickel was trading at $6.30 Canadian, and there wasn't a lot of interest in the market for lower grade open pit nickel projects. So that's why we've shifted a lot to the Muskox. But the Lockerby project and the West Graham deposit, given that we've seen a bit of a rise in nickel price again, it's still a good project, and it's got its time and place. I mean, there's 22 million tons of resources within top 500 meters. There's a really nice 5 to 6 million ton starter pit with a low strip ratio that could be easily developed, and it just going to take just the right market conditions, and there's an opportunity for that project to come online, and the mills in Sudbury are certainly in need of feed, so it's a good fit.
Any guess as to what kind of nickel price you'd need to make the project feasible?
Well, I mean, it's feasible at these prices.
Okay.
Obviously, you'd like to have you'd like to have a little more comfort and
For
a little
sure.
more cushion in your price. I mean,
Yeah.
the copper price certainly helps. When we first did our resource, we were using $3.50 for copper, so that's seen a big increase. But
Yeah.
conversely, we were using $9 for nickel, which was, actually
Yeah.
at the time when we signed the agreement, nickel was closer to 12 and a half. So it's dropped a lot in that time.
Seemed conservative at the time. So
Exactly. Yeah, you know what? If we could see, if $8 became the new floor for nickel, that would, I think most of these projects would be in pretty good shape. And
yeah.
really, what it comes down to is you have to, have your capex costs have to be low, which in this case, this project is pretty simple because you don't have to build much of anything. And then it's getting your per ton operating costs down as low as you can, which is can be a challenge, but that's where the value is.
Are you going to be doing any work on Lockerby East this summer?
So we continue to move the project ahead, and a lot of it is just kind of the work that has to go on in order to keep a project moving ahead to a permitting stage. So that's things,
Okay.
Environmental studies, water sampling.
Okay.
We are done drilling the project. We have done enough drilling to move into a feasibility stage or a pre-feasibility stage.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a lot of the work that's not very market friendly. It is that needs to get done in order to get permits. So that stuff kind of goes on behind the scenes, but we won't see any big drill programs or geophysical programs in 2026.
Are you looking at all, given your focus on Muskox, that maybe partnering or getting us JVing or something on the Lockerby East, and that, and trying to find a different way to get her done?
Certainly, I think that's definitely one of the options that we're considering. I mean, in our view, we have two really good projects at slightly different end of the
Yeah.
spectrum. One resource that needs the capital to basically push it to a production decision, whereas the other one is an early staged exploration project. And the reality is that we probably can't afford or raise enough funds to do both of them to the level that they need. So, finding a partner for the Lockerby project to help move it along does make a lot of sense, and it is something that we are certainly open to and evaluating right now.
Well, that sounds good. It sounds like it's going to be lots going on in Nunavut with you guys this summer, so that's great. Any final comments before we wrap it up?
As I just mentioned, the SPC's got two really good quality projects. We're seeing some pretty robust kind of rebound in the nickel copper space and also the precious metal space, which is great for our projects. I think that, like I said before, since our financing, we've seen a 5 times increase in our share price, and I think that the sky's the limit for us with additional work. So there's still lots of upside in SPC. We've got a great shareholder that owns 36% in Dundee, and two good projects and a good management team and board.
So can you just quick refresher on your cap structure? How many shares out?
We are about 370 million shares.
Okay.
And then there's a few options and warrants on top of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Grant, thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
Thank you.